Hi, welcome to the Gamesplainer. I'm Jeff the Gamesplainer, and today I'm gamesplaining Hansa Teutonica. So this is Hansa Teutonica set up as a 3-player game. You'll notice that the number of cubes is different for each player. So this is player 1, player 2, player 3. He starts with 5 cubes, 6, 7. Then the other cubes go into the general stock. The whole concept is on this board. It tells you how much stuff you can do and how often you can do it. So to start with, you have 2 actions available to you. Once you manage to release that cube, you'll now have 3 actions available to you. This tells you that at the moment, you can get 3 cubes out of the general supply into your usable supply or personal supply. When you release one of these, you'll be able to pull 5, 7, and the C means all the cubes that happen to be in the general supply. This is referred to as the Book of Knowledge, the round ones, and tells you how many tradesmen on the board you're able to move. So every cube that's on the board is referred to as a tradesman. So at the moment you can move 2. These cubes tell you which coloured spot in each city you're able to fill up. So to start with, you have the white one, which would enable you to put a cube on here. If you wish to put a cube on here, you will need to have released that cube, opening up the orange. If you wish to put a cube there, you will need it to have released all of them to be able to get to the black. Notice that some of them are circles, so you are going to need to release these at some point. And these are the city keys. These are going to help you with the points at the end of the game. So at the moment, at the end of the game, you're going to get points for the number of trading posts you have out in adjoining cities. So your longest line of adjoining cities at the moment will be worth 1 point for each city. If you can release that, suddenly they're worth 2. If you can release down to here, suddenly worth 3 and worth 4. So it's a worthwhile thing to get them out. May not necessarily be really 100% worthwhile right early in the game, but at the end of the game is going to sneak up on you. So that's kind of what your board is talking about. How does the game play? I'm so glad you asked. So according to this, it tells you how many actions you can perform in a turn. Your choice of actions are, you can take income, which is moving tradesmen from the general stock to your supply, according to how many are marked here. So at the moment, you could move 3 more cubes across. You can place a tradesman. So these are tradesmen, and that allows you to place one of these markers on one of these little houses. What you're trying to do is create a route in your color between the 2 cities. So you could place tradesman once, place tradesman again as your 2 actions if you wish. There's no problem with doubling down and doing the same thing multiple times. You're absolutely allowed to do that. You could move or displace a tradesman. So for example, if red had taken their turn and placed a tradesman there, the way this works is blue really wants to finish off this space. So in order to displace that tradesman, it's going to cost you 1 tradesman to the general stock to then bring another tradesman in. That tradesman then gets displaced to a connecting trade route, so either here or here. So that would get displaced to there. The red player would also take an extra tradesman from the general stock and place it down in a similar manner. So that's an action that is going to give benefit to red because they get extra guys on the board. It's going to be a negative to blue because he's cost him 2 of his guys to actually only get 1 on there. But sometimes it may be necessary to actually do that action. The next action that you have, let's say the board looks like that. Your action would be to move a tradesman on the board. The number of tradesmen you're able to move on the board is according to this book. So he could, theoretically, if that's what the board looked like, he could use that action to move 1, 2. If we're further into the game and he's released more of these round tokens, then obviously he'd be able to move more guys around the board with that 1 action. So that only cost him 1, even though he moved 2. And the other action you can do is create a route between 2 cities. This blue has now created a route. Just because you finished the route, so it's all complete, doesn't mean it's completed. You actually have to take the action to complete the route. And what that looks like is you can move one of your markers to fill up one of the two cities, and then the rest of the markers go into the general supply. If that's what it looks like, this city would give blue 1 point because he has the majority. Whoever is sitting on this spot would actually have the majority over the top of blue, simply because the further to the right, the more majority you have. So it's never totally even. Obviously, if you're in a city that has more spots, if you had two and there's only one of each other color, the person who has two on there would have that majority. So that would score him 1 point. If someone had a majority here, that would score them 1 point. It doesn't matter if it's blue, red, green, it doesn't matter who it is. Whoever has the majority in each city will score the point. So that's for filling up the route. Then you can either put a marker onto the end. Notice that it's only orange or orange available. You can't go to the pink. You can't jump to one of the later cubes. You have to take the furthest to the left. So you have to be able to take the furthest to the left, which also means that if you fill up this route, you must, in order to take this city or get a marker into the city, you must have a round piece or a merchant on that line in order to take that city. Now what happens is he can do this action. And what that action looks like is, talking about this cube here, it's releasing that one cube. These three will all go back into the general supply, but he releases his one cube to his own supply, so he can use that. And that now gives him a third action to continue on with. So he could then do something else and put a cube up there, for example. And that is how each of these spots that have markers around the board work. When you fill in down here, you want to make sure you're using a round one, a merchant, because once you have filled up between those two cities, you can release that merchant onto one of these four spots, and that will give you points at the end of the game. But if you have only uncovered the white, you can only put that on the 7. If that's what your board looks like, you can, by all means, put that round one on the pink marker. That just gives you bonus points or some extra points at the end of the game. As soon as you make a connection from these two cities, it doesn't matter which ones you go through, but you need to be able to follow a line through. So there's a connection from east to west. If you're the first person to do that, you immediately get 7 points. If you're the second person, 4 points, third person, 2 points. And that's points that come in straight away. So if blue manages to get from there to there, he would instantly gain the 7 points. Other things to be aware of is these markers. If you manage to complete between these two cities or these two cities or these two cities, you will get the marker. For example, this allows you to change the rules of trading posts, and it enables you to put in an extra marker to the left-hand side of the city. So if that's what that one actually looks like, at the moment red has majority. If he uses this, blue now has majority, and that's just put off to the side once that's been used. When you get that, you can just keep that there. You bring a new marker over onto your plate. So at the end of your turn, you'll then add that to the board, and that will need to be added to a location that, or a route that has no markers on it. So if there's an empty mark, you can just throw it there with the arrow pointing towards the route. So if that's like the next route you're going to go for, that's probably a good way to go. And they change things up. So whenever you gain one, you will then add one back to the board. There will always be 3 on the board. So the game will finish once one of these markers gets past the 20 points. Many markers could go there at the same time. When one of the markers gets to the 20, the game finishes immediately. Another way the game can finish is if a player needs to add one of these bonus markers, but there isn't one available, or when the active player creates a completed city trade route, which is the 10th one, and you do mark them every time you've got a complete city, push that along one. Once you have created the 10th completed city, then that will be the end of the game also. Other things to bear in mind, there are some points available within these city trade routes. You're looking for little markers like that. So if there's a 1 in the spot where you put a token, then you will immediately gain 1 more point by placing the token there. Once you have completed that, so points came from when there's a completed trade route, whoever has control over each of the cities will get 1 point. 1 point for controlling a spot that has the 1 point on it, and the points for going east-west. That's the only points that are going to happen during the game. Once one of them gets down to 20, or one of the other reasons for the game to finish happens, you will gain. Firstly, if you have completely developed an ability, there's 4 points, and that's for each of the abilities, so I can gain you another 4. There are points for the number of these bonus markers that have been collected through the game, and it's for just 1, it's 1 point. For 2 or 3, it's 3 points. 4 or 5 is 6 points, etc. There is a table to help you out with that. If you occupy one of these spots, you gain these points now of whatever you have covered up. Then you gain 2 points for each city that you can control. So here, blue controls this city because he has 2 markers as opposed to just the 1. Here, blue has control. If that's what it looked like, red would have control. So whoever is the furthest to the right, if it's an even match for the number of markers you have there. Then you're looking at your largest combined area of points where you have cities. So this, and this are all joined together. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 markers on that area. So it's 5 multiplied by however many markers we've got here. So it's multiplied by 1 at the moment. If he'd managed to release that, it's suddenly worth 10 points instead of just 5 points. So that's something to not forget about and make sure you actually do through the game. And that, my friends, is the game. Please go ahead and watch my gameplay to get a feel for how the game actually plays. If you have any comments or suggestions, please write them below. If you have any games that you would like to be gamesplained, please shoot me an email to thegamesplainer@gmail.com. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter @thegamesplainer to keep up to date with the games that I'm playing. Subscribe to my videos to keep up to date with the games that I'm gamesplaining. And until next time, enjoy gaming.